All right, good morning, everybody. This is Shane, Chair of the Transportation Safety Committee. So I want to go ahead and call this meeting to order. So we'll go ahead with a roll call here first. Just a few administrative reminders. Everybody in the room here, please mind your microphone when you talk. Please make sure your microphone is on so those online could hear you. Also, those attending virtually today, please mind your mute button. So when you're not speaking, make sure you mute yourself. And then when you want to speak, please unmute yourself. And then, of course, those attending by phone, *6 is to mute and unmute, and *9 to raise your hand, which we'll try to keep an eye on for anybody raising their hand. All right, and we'll now begin with the roll call to make sure we officially have a quorum here today. So Mohammed, can you go ahead and start the roll call?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, member of the Transportation Safety Committee. This is a roll call for quorum for today's Transportation Safety Committee meeting. Shane Kioso from City of Apache Junction.
I am here.
Sergeant Michael Hunt from Arizona Department of Public Safety. Kerry Wilcoxon from Arizona Department of Transportation. Robert Gray from Arizona State University. Raj Thodam from City of Avondale. John Willett from City of Buckeye.
Present.
Raymond Huang from City of Chandler.
I am here. Good morning.
Nick Russo from City of El Mirage. Christopher Salas from Town of Florence. Aaron Pinkerton from Town of Gilbert.
Present. Good morning.
Tony Abbo from City of Glendale.
Good morning. I am present.
Hugh Biak from City of Goodyear.
Present.
Alberto Gurrier from Governor's Office of Highway Safety. Kate Trunaski from City of Litchfield Park.
Present.
Kerry Osborne from City of Maricopa.
Present.
Mazen Muradovich from Maricopa County Department of Transportation.
Present.
Stefan Bach from City of Mesa.
Good morning. Present.
Brandon Forey from City of Peoria.
Present.
Reed Henry as proxy for Carl Langford from City of Phoenix.
Present.
Tara Harman from Pinal County. Marshall Regal as proxy for Gian Martin from Town of Queen Creek.
Here.
Sam Taylor from City of Scottsdale.
Present.
Dana Oziani from City of Surprise. Eli Valuzin from City of Tempe.
Present.
Adrian Ruiz from Valley Metro. Are there any members that I have missed? With that, Mr. Chair, we have a quorum, and that concludes the roll call.
All right, thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, everybody, for your attentive being there for the roll call and also attending the meeting. We really appreciate your attendance, and we'll move on to item number 2, which is the call to audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MEG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience agenda item unless committee requests an exception to this limit. Members of the public who are attending in person may deliver their comments from the lectern in front of the room. You have up to 3 minutes to complete your comments. MEG staff will notify you when you have 1 minute remaining and when your allotted time has expired. I have not received any requests to speak cards on the agenda items here in person. Let's see, are there any other members of the public here today who desire to speak on this item? All right, I do not see any here in person. And Mohammed, I believe we might have a couple written comments for this item. And then just also want to get a reminder, this is for information and not for discussion. So I just wanted to clarify that as we listen to the comments. Mohammed?
Mr. Chair, member of the Transportation Safety Committee, we received 2 comments for this agenda item. I'll read them now. The first comments we have is from David in Mesa, Arizona. Begin comment, members of the MAG Transportation Safety Committee, the existing Strategic Transportation Safety Plan, STSP, is purportedly built on public input, but that input is in no way reflective of transportation users across the valley. For example, the plan advertises the pool of respondents as consisting of 56% motorists, 26% pedestrians, and 18% bicyclists, which is laughable. These members are not a representative of a reality in which 99% of Maricopa County residents choose to drive a car daily. Presenting a plan as being reflective of what the public wants begins with gathering respondents that actually represents the population. However, the plan itself is even worse. While reducing traffic fatalities actually represent the population. However, the plan itself is even worse. While reducing traffic fatalities is an outwardly noble goal, the safe systems approach is interchangeable with the global Vision Zero push, which is really just an anti-data, anti-engineering, and anti-car agenda. Vision Zero proponents achieve this goal primarily through road diets and traffic calming measures, both of which the existing MAG STSP calls for. The truth is Vision Zero and the safe systems approach leave communities less safe and with more traffic congestion. For example, Denver adopted a Vision Zero plan in 2017, in the 5 years since, the traffic fatalities have increased by 33%. New York City, despite being committed to eliminating traffic fatalities by 2024, had the highest level of fatalities since 2014. Los Angeles experienced a 20-year high in traffic fatalities after having adopted Vision Zero in 2015. Millions spent on plans that don't benefit drivers and result in more fatalities. Additionally, though this plan claims that implementing road diets, specifically reducing 4 lanes to 3, reduces fatalities by 11 to 47%, a widely disparate rate of which is not substantiated with published data, it does not consider the likely increased response time for emergency vehicles rushing to scenes where every second makes a difference. Causing congestion will mean slower response time across the board, even hampering those who are transporting loved ones to access medical care. Vision Zero has failed everywhere it has been tried, and this safe systems approach is no different. Our tax dollars should not be spent on projects that rip out lanes, lower speed limits, and increase congestion, which all creates barriers to Arizonans just trying to get to their jobs, drop off their kids off at their schools of their choice, access better education, and freely move around the valley in the manner of their choice by car. End comment. Second comment we have is from RT in Chandler, Arizona. Begin comment. I know this committee is focused on safety, so I want to make a recommendation regarding what should be considered on a future agenda regarding safety, and that is public transit. A lot of attention gets focused on improving safety on our freeways and arterials, especially for motorcyclists, cyclists, and pedestrians. We should always look to improve these stats, especially when it is within our control to do so and isn't strictly a function of human error. However, little to absolutely no attention is ever paid to safety as it relates to public transit. Based upon data crunched from the Fatality and Injury Reporting System tool, on the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Freeways in Maricopa County are relatively safe as a function of fatalities per billion vehicle miles traveled. There are under 18 deaths per billion passenger miles. While of course we would all love this number to be zero, by comparison between 2014 to 2021, there were an average of 24 fatalities per billion passenger miles on light rail. Considering this relative comparison, this committee should be exploring the cause of these fatalities on light rail. As your Safe Systems Plan demands radical changes to arterial infrastructure, I'm curious as to why this body isn't equally interested in radical changes to public transit and specifically light rail. Aside from collisions and unfortunate accidents between pedestrians and the light rail, I frequently see reports on the news about violent crimes and other criminal activity occurring on the light rail. Crime statistics available in Mesa and Phoenix reveal the same truth. Light rail is a hotbed for crime. How can we encourage students and older people, single females, or any vulnerable person to use a public transit that puts them at such risk? When people get in a car, they implicitly know there is some risk involved, not just their own errors, but others that might cause an accident on our roads. That sort of risk people are willing to undertake day after day. However, knowingly subjecting yourself to potential victimization, people are not willing to subject themselves to that kind of exposure unless they have no other choice. MAG's exclusion of public transit in their safety plan is a glaring omission. It is time to have this conversation about the dangers of light rail. End comment. And that concludes the public comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mohammed. We'll move on to item 3, which is the approval of the minutes. And this is for the approval of our Transportation Safety Committee meeting held back on March 28th. Make sure I got my glass. 28th, 2023. Does any member of the Transportation Safety Committee have comments or revisions to the March 28th meeting minutes? All right, I'm not hearing any amendments to the minutes. So do I have a motion to move forward with approval of the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes on the 28th of March.
All right, I got a primary motion from Mazan. Any second?
I second. This is Tony Abbo.
Thank you, Tony. All right, we'll go ahead and do a voice vote here in the room. And then we'll go to the virtual side and get a roll call vote there. But for those in the room, those in favor say aye. 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 Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? All right, Mohammed, can you do a roll call to get the online vote?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, member of the Transportation Safety Committee. This is a roll call for item number 3 for participants attending virtually. Terry Wilcoxon from Arizona Department of Transportation.
Approved.
John Willett from City of Buckeye.
Approved.
Raymond Huang from City of Chandler.
Move.
Aaron Pinkerton from Town of Gilbert.
Approved.
Tony Abbo from City of Glendale.
I approve.
Hugh Biok from City of Goodyear.
Approve.
Kate Runoski from City of Litchfield Park.
Approved.
Harry Osborne from City of Maricopa.
Approved.
Stefan Bach from City of Mesa.
Approved.
Brandon Forey from City of Peoria.
Approved.
Reed Henry as proxy for Carl Langford from City of Phoenix.
Abstain. Abstain.
Tara Harmon from Pinal County. Marshall Regal as proxy for Jan Martin from Town of Queen Creek.
Abstain.
Are there any members that I have missed? Mr. Chair, with that, the motion passes.
All right, thank you, Mohammed. I've been advised that we have the speaker for item 7 that might be on the line, Danielle. I'm willing to give you the floor right now for your item number 7 on the agenda if you're able or willing. That's for.
All right, sure, that'd be great.
Yes.
Thank you for moving me up. I have another meeting that I wasn't aware of, I had a conflict for. So I just wanted to say, oh, good morning. Well, actually, yes, good morning there. My name is Danielle Becky, and I am with the Federal Highways Office of Safety. And we're super excited to talk to you today about a pilot workshop that we conducted back in March to help advance the implementation of the safe system approach. As you may know, the U.S. Department of Transportation adopted a Vision Zero roadway deaths, a Vision Zero for roadway deaths through the National Roadway Safety Strategy, which acknowledges that 0 is the only acceptable number of deaths on our nation's roadways. So reaching 0 deaths requires the implementation of a safe system approach, which was founded on the principles that humans make mistakes and that human bodies have limited ability to tolerate crash impacts. The purpose of these pilots was to show what the safe system approach looks like in practice. We received over 50 applications in response to the safe system pilot solicitation, and we ended up choosing 8 agencies, and MAG was one of them. The pilots included a range of project types, including policy, planning, and infrastructure. And the purpose of the MAG's pilot was to review and update their regional strategic transportation safety plan. So this review assessed how the safe system approach was applied and then things they can include moving forward. The workshop also provided a brief introduction of the safe system approach and introduced a hierarchy of safe system solutions. And then we worked through an example using a project-based safe system alignment framework. We also included some open discussion using the policy-based safe system alignment framework. But before I turn it over to Corey Hopwood, who is going to provide a more in-depth overview of the workshop findings, I just wanted to emphasize that this was a pilot, and it was an opportunity for us to test our materials under various scenarios. So as we go through and do these pilots, we are updating our materials to address the feedback that we received from each of the workshops. And we did have some really great discussion at the MAG pilot, so we were really great to get the feedback from everyone there. But other than that, we expect to have finished materials, I believe, next summer. And thank you for giving us an opportunity to provide this information. And I'm going to turn it over to Corey.
Thanks, Danielle. Can you hear me all right?
Here you good.
Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, as Danielle mentioned, my name is Corey Hopwood. I'm with Cambridge Systematics, traffic safety engineer, and we're supporting, along with our partners at BNN, supporting FHWA on implementing these and researching these FHWA safe system solutions. The goal of this overall project was to, again, measure project and policy alignment with the safe system approach. But specifically today, I'm going to talk more about the pilot workshops that Danielle mentioned that we were conducting all over the country, and the one specifically conducted with MAG as part of the framework development. And then I'll also cover several of the key outcomes based on that workshop, both related to feedback on the tool and the outcomes of the assessment of the STSP. The purpose, again, of the MAG workshop, again, was to assist in that understanding, trying to focus on that safe system lens and assessing their strategic transportation safety plan, trying to incorporate safe systems approach, which they had already started to do as part of their current version. But the workshop was going to, again, review what was in that recently accepted plan, see if there was opportunities to, again, get better alignment with the safe system approach, and then provide that review and some of those recommendations going forward for future updates. Next slide, please. So for background, you heard Danielle mention the hierarchy of effectiveness. This project began with research on particular solutions, whether it's countermeasures or strategies that support the SAFE system. These solutions are meant to help guide the development of the framework tools that I'm going to talk about, really calling out key priority countermeasures that we want to highlight that support the SAFE system, but also potential risks that could be key aspects of the framework tools we were putting together as well, and make sure those risks are being elevated and considered correctly and kind of a tiered by impact approach. This led naturally to the development of a need to kind of rank and tier these countermeasures and solutions that we were researching, and led to this draft hierarchy of effectiveness by FHWA. Again, this hierarchy is driven by SAFE system principles, which I will cover briefly before we get into the actual tools themselves. But really the focus is decreasing that kinetic energy and removing those potential vulnerable impact angles on our roadways. You'll see listed here, and in particular order, that first tier is to remove severe conflicts. If we can remove severe conflicts, this reduces the risks and eliminates potential roadway conflicts that could lead to our most severe fatality and serious injury crashes. This is really an area where the countermeasures and solutions are focused specifically on providing that physical separation for space and different spaces for different roadway users, and in turn managing that kinetic energy by eliminating those potential conflicts altogether. Eliminating these severe roadway conflicts can include removing intersection crossings, maintaining clear zones with fixed objects, and providing separated lanes for the different modes of travel that I mentioned. These countermeasures are, again, fitting across multiple elements of the SAFE system approach, specifically safe roads and safe road user elements. The second part of the hierarchy, second level of the hierarchy of effectiveness is the physical features to slow traffic. Countermeasures to remove severe conflicts are not feasible or take up a lot of right-of-way or costly. For implementation, practitioners can consider adding physical features to improve the roadway safety and manage that kinetic energy via slowing the speeds of travel. For example, self-explaining roadway design, intersection channelization, horizontal and vertical deflection are some of the features that you could implement that might help reach this goal. And I should say, as part of this hierarchy of effectiveness, that we are moving in a kind of down the chain of where you want to start and end. It is possible to obviously, as part of the SAFE system approach, combine several of these hierarchy tiers and use improvements from multiple tiers to, if you can't necessarily hit the maybe top tier solution that you're looking for. So moving on to level 3, separate conflicts in time. Countermeasures and strategies that support conflict separation in time do align with the SAFE system approach by reducing that exposure opportunity and reducing that potential conflict point, or the amount of time that conflict point is possible. And this again helps avoid and enhance that crash avoidance. For example, things like pedestrian hybrid beacons, leading pedestrian intervals, the types of countermeasures that really get our users moving at separate times are key. And this also, some of these countermeasures also help alert motor vehicles of crossing pedestrians, bicyclists, and gives them more time to cross safely. Tier number 4 is increase attentive and awareness. If we can't separate all these conflicts or slow them down, adding that additional attentiveness and awareness is a great way to address safety. It's shared among all users, so this could be increased attentive and awareness for bicyclists, pedestrians, motor vehicle operators, and this includes a lot of different things. This is rumble strips, this is back plates, this is crosswalk visibility. Each of these would potentially fall into that category. And then the final area is implementing speed enforcing strategies. So if we cannot, make those physical changes to slow folks down or remove those conflicts, we can potentially add things like speed safety cameras or set appropriate speed limits that will help hopefully enforce the need to slow motor vehicle traffic down. Next slide, please. And so considering that research and considering how we were starting to build this hierarchy of different solutions and where they fit in the overall SAFE system approach, we started to develop an alignment framework tool for specifically addressing project locations or site-specific locations. This was kind of the first tool in our first shot at trying to measure SAFE system alignment in the physical sense and in our infrastructure projects. This specific tool was built a lot off of the Off-Road SAFE system alignment framework, which again, touched on the things you're seeing here: exposure, crash likelihood, crash severity. as well as some qualitative safety prompts to address things like equity and post-crash care. This also was utilized in the FHWA Safe System intersection tool. So we're building off a lot of the tools that were already out there. Again, looking for potential opportunities to assess, fix some of the gaps that we saw in there, make sure we have very objective tools, make sure we have very simplistic tools that all levels of practitioner can make use of, and make sure we're really covering the things we believe align directly with the safe system. Those being, again, exposure, likelihood, severity, as well as the things mentioned in the safety prompts with post-crash care and the other elements of safe system that might not be as easy to quantify, but should definitely be part of your considerations as you're weighting a location. You can see here just the general breakdown of what that scoring looks like. I won't get too deep into the different criteria since this pilot project was focused on the policy alignment framework. But you can see the crash likelihood where we are actually getting into our specific risk factors on the roadway and doing that proactive assessment of the risks on a particular location and particular solutions for those risks receive the most points, because that's where we have an opportunity to make the most changes practitioners when we put in our proposed conditions. So that's just a quick rundown of the project alignment tool. We do have some feedback on the next slide that we received from the group. I won't go too deep into that feedback, but there was quite a bit on the next slide. A lot of really good things and a lot of things that we've heard from a lot of the different agencies we've worked with. Arizona was one of the last couple pilot projects we did and showed this project-based alignment framework to. So again, there was a lot of interest in making sure we were providing for the different contexts that are out there, making sure there was flexibility in the tool to do so if you wanted to customize it later, making sure we get a good understanding of vehicle mix, speed differential, those types of things that can play into severity. Ways to weight and score different factors among the risks, especially in that second scoring section I mentioned. So making sure, if we're in a particular, working with a particular agency in a particular jurisdiction, there might be different ways you want to weight certain improvements or weight certain risk factors. So making sure that customization was available. So we're working to make sure that's in there, and then also just being very clear on the definitions and scoring so that they can be justified and used as defensible means when you start to maybe include them in things like HSIP applications or other opportunities for funding. There's the SS4A grants that are out that this might play into. So making sure that those are all very clear and defensible when using them for that purpose. And then so getting into the MAG workshop on the next slide, we get into the policy-based alignment framework. And this policy alignment framework was built to mimic similar to the HSIP alignment framework for a safe system approach as well. We wanted to have a way to, for an agency to assess how their program, how their documentation was doing in terms of aligning with the safe system. Is it thoroughly being vetted through a safe system lens? And is that going all the way up through all levels of the agency? And is it going to coming into play with your teaming partners? So there's a wide variety of factors that were considered. We wanted to have a tool that one could take their policy or their documentation through and kind of continue to measure it and continue to track it as they continue to consider more safe system elements, bring that into their practices, and make sure that their documentation is speaking to that effectively. You'll see here, that's the big thing here is that tracking, that identification of current gaps, and really just finding ways for that continuous improvement so we can all get closer and closer to really having that safe system culture as a part of our day-to-day work. Next slide. And that all started by using these safe system principles. You can see here we have each of the safe system principles as well as an added component of equity. Just for quick background, the road to zero, death and serious injury is unacceptable is pretty straightforward. That's where we're trying to make sure it's understood that we want to eliminate all crashes that could lead to serious injuries and fatalities on our roadways. Then we have humans make mistakes, really starting on that focusing on that human error aspect. So we know that most crashes on our roadways are due to people making mistakes, and that we hopefully as practitioners can better plan, engineer, and design our roadways to accommodate drivers so that when they do make those mistakes, it doesn't lead to a death or serious injury. Humans are vulnerable, focuses on human limits. So people having that limited tolerance for impacts with our large motor vehicles, and making sure that before those impacts could possibly happen, trying to lower speed or make improvements so those higher risk crash types, those more vulnerable crash types like head-on crashes, lane departure crashes, bike ped crashes are less likely to occur. Collaboration and support through the responsibility is shared, making sure we call out this shared responsibility among all of us, not just the engineers, vehicle manufacturers, and the road users, but also the folks that we work with on a lot of our transportation projects, or should be operations staff, planners, law enforcement, EMS, you name it, all part of that kind of Vision Zero approach we're used to bringing in. And I will say that MAG's plan already does a great job of this. So you'll see that highlighted as we move through kind of how this was scored, but a really great and important piece of the safe system alignment. Then we have safety is proactive. And that's getting into risk prevention. So not just addressing high crash locations, but also going after those risk factors that we know will lead to our most severe crash types. Using those proactive and systemic approaches to ensure those risks that lead to those types of crashes are removed. And then finally, redundancy is crucial. Focusing on a multi-layered system, and this concept really revolves around providing redundant layers so that when one of these other elements fails or one of our improvements fails, the system doesn't fail. And that there are other areas that will hopefully keep our users safe. And then finally, equity, making sure that all the folks that are impacted disproportionately across our roadway or transportation network are being addressed as well. And that includes the different types of users, different types of communities, making sure that everyone is included in that conversation. So on the next slide, we have a quick rubric example of how each of these areas is scored. And this is just starting with our very first criteria or category, death and serious injuries unacceptable. You can see in the description for each of these, it'll focus on 5 different categories. Here, the first 3 are listed on this screen: initiation, development, and execution, each based on a series of thresholds in the scoring. You can see a little bit of detail on how that scoring might work for this particular area off to the right. But really, it's all about, where are you at in delivering this as part of your documentation and planning efforts. So initiation is really just getting started, starting to have those conversations, or 0 if those conversations haven't started at all. Development really gets into starting to put together a plan, taking that conversation to a more physical, formal effort. And then execution is actually implementing parts of that plan and making sure some of that language is being put together and defined accordingly so that it can be put into each of your delivery processes and other practices across your agency. On the next slide, we have the last 2 categories or phases of this alignment, measuring this alignment. And again, this matches what we're doing for HSIP as well for programs. And evaluation is really, is that developed process, is that developed methodology being evaluated, and do you have a means of doing so? Really giving you the opportunity to set goals, evaluate those goals, if there's potential improvements that could be made to a policy or process, really, as much as one can really do within their own internal practices. And then integration is where we're starting to, one, push this into agency culture as a whole throughout your entire agency, kind of removing those silos where safety might not be as prominent, and then also with our partner agencies and other groups that we work with as part of the working on transportation projects and transportation safety. And so coming up a little bit close to our time, so I'm going to run really quickly through kind of the outcomes and the assessment of where MAG kind of landed as part of this. Again, here's just the summarized and short version of each of these areas. For the first category, death and serious injuries unacceptable, we marked MAG in the execution phase. So they've started drafting some of that language into their policy. And I will say this was very specifically looking at the STSP. So unless there was something referenced in the STSP that spoke to some of these other areas, we were very focused on that document and things referenced in that document. So that's not to say that the agency or the program isn't necessarily scoring higher in these areas, but this is how this document particularly scores. So as part of recommendations, there are conversations that I'll get into on the next couple of slides about maybe referencing other pieces of the program, other documentation that do support this, because it might not have been necessary for it to be directly included, or the details of these things to be directly included in the STSP. But death and serious injury is unacceptable, scored at the execution level. Humans make mistakes, also scored very high in the execution level. One area where we scored a little bit lower, and if I didn't say this before, MAG's STSP was also our highest scoring document throughout our assessment process in our pilot project so far. So these scores are actually very, very good. And I'd like to really highlight that, and the fact that the STSP, this most recent draft, was made through a safe system lens, and that's why they did so well in a lot of these areas. So as part of the development of our framework, we are taking a lot of what we saw in MAG's policy and in their STSP specifically back to be great examples and best practices for a lot of the other agencies that we're supporting through these pilot projects. One area where they got a little bit lower score, and that really has to do with the nature of this type of plan, is the humans are vulnerable piece. And so we'll talk a little bit more about kind of why that was and the types of things that can be done to maybe to raise that. It's early part of the discussion, but really highlighting that type of language, that type of piece in the culture of the document is important. And then the last few on the next slide, our responsibility is shared, where again, we're scoring in the execution phase. Safety is proactive, a little bit lower just in the development phase. Redundancy is crucial, again, 7 in the execution phase, and equity receiving one of the higher scores in the evaluation phase, 10. In the next slide, we get into a little more detail and some of the actual reasoning behind why they scored as well as they did, focusing very much on that safety as a shared language, really seeing that safe system culture throughout the entire document really drove the higher score in the execution piece for the STSP in this first category. It does a really good job of defining approaches for reducing fatalities and serious injuries, and again, supports a lot of the key goals in regards to aligning with the safe system approach. There are some specific language nuances that the group would like to see just to really, drive home that need to really eliminate fatalities and serious injuries. There is a large talk on severity throughout the document, but maybe again, focusing that back towards actually how those assessments, how those prioritization of locations is still meant to land on where we have our most likely risk factors for fatalities and serious injuries. The next criteria or category is humans make mistakes. And again, the document did a great job of listing out a lot of opportunities for addressing the fact that humans are going to make mistakes. Talks about emerging technologies that make up for these mistakes. Talked about human factors as a part of the pedestrian safety performance section. Talked about proven safety countermeasures, which we know are meant to mitigate human mistakes. It also promoted a lot of education strategies through the CME AZ program and a lot of other ways to address that human error. One thing it doesn't necessarily do is really directly call out that human error, especially in the countermeasure discussion. And I'll note through these next few categories, the countermeasure discussion is great as it is right now and provides a really good opportunity to sneak in some of these key safe system approaches. I noted roadway departure as a great area to potentially bring in the humans make mistakes piece because of how the countermeasures are set up to mitigate each piece or each portion of a lane departure crash where someone could be going off the roadway, and how it tries to keep them from going off the roadway, get them back on the roadway, and then mitigate the severity of a crash when it occurs. Does a really good job of talking about how humans make mistakes from a countermeasure selection standpoint. So bringing in some more direct language towards that would be an easy way or a great way to kind of beef up that alignment with the safe system. The same can be said for the next section for humans being vulnerable, or the vulnerability of the human body in these types of crashes. A really good job of discussing severity, a really good job of laying out proven safety countermeasures. But again, another opportunity maybe in the countermeasure toolbox portion of the plan to list out, how these countermeasures are addressing that issue specifically, why we want to highlight some of those countermeasures, and why it's so important to address that vulnerability of certain crash types and certain users in crashes to address fatalities and serious injuries. Next slide focuses on responsibility is shared. Again, the STSP does a great job of this, talking about the safety stakeholders, really focusing on the roles of that group and everyone being responsible for the safety and care for others. That's exactly the type of language we're looking for in this. I think the big piece that could beef that up is maybe referencing whether it's the SHF, a local road safety plan, or the state highway safety plan, getting more specifically into the different action plans that are available and the specific roles of those folks. Really just making sure that skin in the game piece is highlighted. But really, it does a good job of highlighting those teaming partners, which is key. Safety is proactive is the next area. Really focused a great deal on the potential funding and opportunities that are out there for implementing safety improvements. I will say MAG is very far ahead from the other groups that we've reviewed on their safety plans for making sure that that piece is very what I think is proactive, making sure that that funding piece is there and that support is there. That's often one of the hardest pieces to get to. It does support a lot of treatments that are safe system aligned, even if they're not necessarily supported by super high benefit costs or some of the other things we look for traditionally in safety practices. And that's hopefully what this tool and the other tool are trying to do. Promotes the highway safety manual and more of that predictive analysis. That's great. Some areas that could potentially be beefed up are just identifying specific risk factors that are addressed in the countermeasure selection, like I mentioned in the previous two sections, or the two sections on humans making mistakes and human vulnerability. But also just including example risk factors for those different types of crash locations and those most vulnerable crashes. And then also just speaking more to that systemic analysis that's taking place. And then we have redundancy is crucial. So promoting that comprehensive approach, again, doing a really good job of calling out all the different ways and strategies in which safety is addressed, not just the infrastructure and engineering side, but also a lot of the educational enforcement components are referenced. Listing improvements that provide that redundancy, using a lot of the same types of or a lot of different types of improvements at the same types of locations to address the various risk factors so that if one fails, the other can hopefully mitigate that severe crash from occurring. But there are obviously opportunities to always kind of beef up the redundancy piece. I know it's one of the toughest ones to kind of support in the safe system because we're asking for a lot of, driving home that we need to address risk factors very comprehensively. And there's always a limit to our funding. There's a limit to how many improvements we can put in one location, but discussing that combination of combining those improvements could be beneficial. Again, I think the way we start to do that is how lane departure is laid out in this plan already does a great job of really walking through the process of why you would include all those various types of improvements to keep someone on the road, or if they go off the road, protect them from those severe crashes. Bringing that part into the redundancy conversation more directly would be an easy way to beef up this score as well. And then finally, we have the equity considerations. Mag did a great job in this area, really talking about everyone throughout, talking about the equity goals, focusing on vulnerable road user, key risks in local and specific communities, and those requirements for equity to be included on prioritizing projects. Again, making sure that demographic piece is brought into the network screening would be great. Maybe developing equity specific focus areas, that type of thing. But really, this is an area where we're really trying to move towards, I think, integration and trying to get this piece as part of safety pushed throughout the agency and with our partners. This particular area is doing very, very well. And so for next steps, I just wanted to give a quick heads up on kind of where we're going from here. Obviously, feedback was being collected on both of those tools throughout the process, including our conversation with MAG. So we got a lot of great feedback there at TRB, other large conferences that we're going to try and include. A lot of those short-term edits will be finalized in the tool this summer. And again, we're trying to make these tools end up fairly customizable so that some of the feedback could be addressed in how you tweak the tools going forward, how you make it work for local context and conditions. From our project timeline, the recommendations report that we're putting together for MAG is being drafted and submitted this week. It will be finalized based on the comments we get back from the participants as part of that workshop, and hopefully finalized in the following month based on that. The hierarchy of effectiveness booklet that was mentioned at the very beginning, it's a booklet supporting kind of what solutions fall into each of those hierarchy tiers, and different things that you can make use of. How do you use the hierarchy? All of that good information will be finalized this summer. That's in a really good place. We're just kind of looking for the final publishing go ahead. And then also for the pilot case studies, where we'll actually talk about what was learned in each of these and the framework tools themselves, we're looking to have those finalized by the end of the year. These will be shared and announced by FHWA once they're published. Again, taking in a lot of really good feedback and trying to prioritize things like weighting and developing local context, ways to bring in that local context piece are the last couple of things we're trying to lock down, especially in the project alignment framework. As far as applications for these tools, we see it being utilized in our everyday safety practices. I know that FHWA is hoping that the project alignment tool can help justify some of your safe system solutions and help support things like HSIP applications, SS4A applications, and really giving us a way to justify some of those treatments that may be are, costly, or, we're not the first for us to pick every time, or maybe not combine in the ways we're used to, but really trying to find a way to justify the safety improvements we know as practitioners should be implemented if we really want to get to zero. And then the policy tool really help us and agencies throughout try and improve on our policies, documentations, and programs holistically. So giving us a way to track and continuously improve as we do updates to these types of plans. With that, I will open it up for questions. I know I went over my 15 minutes, so I won't take too long, but I'm all ears and ready to answer. And if you think of something later that you'd like to ask myself or Margaret or Danielle, please, my contact information is on the previous slide, which I'm sure will be shared with all of you. And please do not hesitate to reach out. We're very excited about this project, this work. Excited to talk to everyone about it. And I think a lot of you in the room are actually involved. So if there's other questions, there's Carrie. I will definitely take them. Go ahead, Carrie.
Yeah, I was going to say, Corey, don't worry about it. We've already charged your credit card for the overage, so we're good. You don't even need to worry about it. You'll just get your receipt.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, no, I wanted to just echo that I really appreciated the exercise and learned a lot. And I think this will really help ADOT and the state as we move forward with our plans for updating our strategic highway safety plan. We have been approved to go to a safe system, and we're really excited about moving forward on that. So thanks for allowing us to participate. Or I guess it was Margaret who allowed us to participate, but thanks for the great training.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. A lot of great input during the workshop itself. I should say that all the participants at our workshop did a great job of kind of providing that peer exchange approach to really moving through the policy assessment. And that was very, very helpful. A lot of really good different vantage points.
All right, thank you. This item is for information and discussion, so I'll open it up to the Transportation Committee if there's any comments or any discussion. Margaret, did you have something?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the Transportation Safety Committee. Corey, I just wanted to ask you, you had mentioned something about next summer, and then you mentioned as well that you hope to wrap up development of the tool this summer.
Sorry, that should have all been this summer. So the project itself will end by the end of the year. So most of the things that, if I said next summer, that was me misspeaking. Everything should be that's done in the summer will be this summer, and then the tools themselves would be at the end of the year.
Okay, great. Because as you mentioned when you went through the scoring, when we go to update the STSP, which will be here within the next year, we'll have been in year 3 of implementation of the plan. So I'm looking forward to seeing the final tool for the policy framework to kind of take a look back on those 3 years to see how those scores might change. So, and then as you mentioned, apply those to the update to that plan. So thank you very much. I also wanted to mention that we did get a lot of good participation at the workshop. So, and Carrie, we're all about free will here. We encourage and invite you to participate in these things, but we certainly don't allow you to, I guess. So thanks, Corey. Any other questions from the committee?
All right, hearing none. Well, thank you, Corey. Thank you, Danielle. And Danielle, thank you for being, I guess, flexible and making it happen today. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, committee.
Thank you.
Instead of moving forward, I guess we're moving backwards here to, I believe it is item.
Mr. Chair, may I make a suggestion?
Yes.
That we go ahead and just put the program manager's report right before committee member reports and move on to item number 5. I also want to note that I know we're kind of needing to be really flexible today. Audra Kester-Thomas was going to be here to present on the Prop 400 extension status. She had to be called to the governor's office this morning, so apologizes, and we will defer that item to July. So if we could move forward to item number 5.
All right, item number 5. So item 5 is the MEG Transportation Safety On-Call list for qualified consultants. The fiscal year 24-25 MEG Unified Work Program and Annual Budget to be approved by the Regional Council on May 24th, 2023 includes budget for MEG transportation safety planning projects to be carried out using on-call consultant contracts. MEG advertised a request for qualifications in February 2023. This item is for information, discussion, and possible action to recommend a list of qualified consultants. MEG staff will provide a review of the RFQ process, evaluation team recommendations, and next steps. And Margaret?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Transportation Safety Committee. As Mr. Chair mentioned, these will actually be 3-year contracts. However, we're speaking mostly today to the work program and budget that is being approved for 2024 and 2025. As mentioned, we advertised the RFQ back in February. And then over the past month, we had an evaluation team that was comprised of members of the committee as well as MAG staff to review those proposals. We received 20 proposals to review for that evaluation. The evaluation team met on Monday of last week and came to a recommendation on the list of qualified consultants you see in attachment A. And moving forward, this does go through the MAG approval process, which means it'll go to management committee and regional council executive in June. At that point, we will begin developing contracts at that time with the qualified list of qualified consultants. A little bit here about, we have 3 areas of expertise that are included in the on-call contract. Transportation safety planning, you'll recognize these more as road safety assessments, local agency safety assessments, the Safe Routes to School studies. So we have 12 consultants that are qualified under that area of expertise. We have a little bit of a change from our last on-call in area of expertise B, the transportation safety programs evaluation. As you all are very aware that now that we have gone through all 4 cycles of programming roadway safety program projects, we now will need a mechanism to do some before and after. So we have a new area of expertise to do that type of evaluation. In addition, you may have heard Chris Gottsacker talk about the CME-AZ program and the work that we are doing with Federal Highway Administration through the focused approach to safety to identify a framework for evaluating the CME-AZ program. So that would be another anticipated type of project under this area of expertise. And then area of expertise C is kind of a carryover. We just reworded it to be more consistent with the STSP and safety related data analysis tools. So we are getting ready to kick off the predictive safety implementation toolkit development project that Mohammed will be managing. So this, there is a little bit of a change in anticipated projects here, and that down the road when that tool is up and running, we will probably want to continue to improve and develop new safety performance functions that can go into that tool. So that area of expertise will be dedicated to that type of work as well. So with that, Mr. Chair, that concludes my portion of this presentation.
Thank you, Margaret. Any discussion or questions for MEG staff related to this item? All right, I guess I'm hearing none or not seeing any hands. So we'll, do we have a motion? Can I get a motion from everybody to move this forward?
This is Ellie. I motion that we recommend to approve this list.
I second.
All right, I do have a first and a second motion in the room here. So we'll go ahead and do a voice vote for those in the room. And then we'll go online with a roll call for vote. So first off in the room here, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those in opposition, any nay? Any abstentions? All right, Mohammed, can you do roll call for online vote?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, member of the Transportation Safety Committee. This is a roll call for item number 5 for members attending virtually. Terry Wilcoxon from Arizona Department of Transportation.
Approved.
Raj Thoram from City of Avondale.
Yay.
John Willett from City of Buckeye.
Approved.
Raymond Huang from City of Chandler.
Aye.
Aaron Pinkerton from Tana Gilbert.
Aye.
Tony Abbo from City of Glendale.
Aye.
Hugh Biak from City of Goodyear.
Aye.
Kate Drunoski from City of Litchfield Park.
Aye.
Harry Osborne from City of Maricopa.
Aye.
Stefan Bach from City of Mesa.
Aye.
Brandon Forey from City of Peoria.
Aye.
Reed Henry as proxy for Carl Langford from City of Phoenix.
Aye.
Tara Harmon from Pinal County.
Aye.
Marshall Regal as proxy for Jan Martin from Town of Queen Creek.
Aye.
And that concludes the roll call, Mr. Chair, with the motion passing.
All right, thank you, everyone. So on the agenda is item 6. It's next, as we heard Margaret earlier, we're looking to probably have that at our next meeting. So we'll carry that one forward to the next meeting. Item 7 has been completed. So we'll go back to, I believe it's program manager's report, which is item number 4. Yes, program manager's report. And Margaret, if you're ready for the report, go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Transportation Safety Committee. I have 3 items today. Next slide, please. Just some quick updates here. As you can see, our fiscal year 2022 road safety assessment projects that were held over are in completion, as well as the 2023 road safety assessments. In addition to that, we are quite a ways through our 2022 to 2023 CME AZ program. We've just received a second version of the annual report that was produced by the media consultant that we'll be taking a look at and finalizing here, and probably a more comprehensive update to the committee in a future meeting regarding that. We are also advertising a new CME AZ media consultant request for proposals for selecting a media consultant moving forward in the 2024 and 2025 program. In addition, the Safe Routes to School studies for 2022 are complete, and we are just about 60% complete on the fiscal year 2023 studies. As you may remember, the Peoria Safe Routes to School study has kind of a unique scope of work that we're excited about, and it is requiring a bit more time to develop that and the updated maps in a more interactive manner. So we look to be finishing up the fiscal year 2023 Safe Routes to School studies here at the end of the year. The fiscal year 2023 bike ped near miss analysis again is about 50% complete. The Near miss analytics is being developed right now and to be delivered to the partnership team between MAG safety staff, MAG emerging technologies, as well as Tempe, Mesa, and Phoenix. So that will be delivered. And then at that time, field reviews will be done separately between MAG staff and the consultant team to come up with some recommendations and provide a debrief to the local agencies in Valley Metro. As you can see, I mentioned before, the predictive safety implementation tool development project will be getting kicked off here very soon. We did have a kickoff meeting with Burgess and Nipel, the consultant selected for development of the Regional Priority Safety Implementation Toolkit, or RPSIT, another project we're very excited about in another way to implement safe systems. So we had a great kickoff meeting with the consultant last week with our internal team, and the next step for that is to have our first tag meeting either early June or late June. There's a doodle poll out for that. So next slide, please. So just again, kind of a reminder that the Roadway Safety Program project's annual reporting is underway. A notice was sent last week to all member agencies that have Roadway Safety Program projects program from fiscal year 2022 to fiscal year 2024. We did provide a fillable Excel format that is available on the RSP website that can be linked pretty easily for development of the 2023 annual RSP annual report. We will be requiring 5 years of data in the policy document, original policy document, it said 3. But in order to do a more robust analysis before and after analysis, we're doing 5 years of after data that's required. And these are important because more and more we need to, with the desire to potentially extend this program into the future, it's important for us to assess the performance of the program. So this information in your annual reporting is very important to us. So just as a reminder to those of you who are working on those, that all sales in orange will be completed with a couple of exceptions, notably those that have just been programmed for fiscal year 2024. You obviously will not have any after data. So there's some portions of that. And if you have any questions about filling out that report, I'd be happy to meet with you one-on-one and go through that with you. So next slide, please. This is a very important regional initiative, the Crossing Guard Training Workshops. I think we're going to be in our 18th year now of holding these workshops in partnership with many member agencies. We greatly appreciate the contributions of our member agencies. This is a lot of work on MAG's part, but we do have a group of very dedicated member agency staff that also help. We couldn't do one without the other. Having to do it on your own would be a huge lift. And so, again, it's a partnership that we gladly facilitate every year. This year, we're going back to 3 in-person workshops in their new locations this year than we have in the past. But the central location will be at the Devonshire Senior Center in Phoenix. The East Valley session will be at Coronado High School. You can see it Thursday, August 3rd. And then for the West Valley, that will be at Centennial High School in Peoria, Arizona on August 7th. And I forgot to mention the Central will be the first one on July 26, 2023. This year, as we have in the past year, we've developed an Eventbrite webpage for registration, which helps us communicate to school districts on the crossing guards who have attended. So they can be recognized for that. So with that, it concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Margaret. Feel free to contact Margaret after the meeting if you have any questions regarding her report, or if you want to celebrate how well her and her staff does on those items. Thank you, Margaret. All right, I know we're bouncing around a bit on the agenda, so please alert me if I miss anything, but I think we're item number 8, report by committee members. At this time, I would like to invite members of the Transportation Safety Committee to report on ongoing safety-related projects, activities in their jurisdiction. We will begin with those here in person in the room, and then Mohammed will use the roll call sheet to request members for those attending virtually. So maybe I'll start. I think I started my right last time. Sam, do you have anything?
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple things. So we were recently awarded the Safe Streets for All grant for development of a local road safety plan. So we're beginning our the initial stages in starting that project. We also the Miller and Osborne roundabout in downtown Scottsdale just opened up. So that's our newest multi-lane roundabout in the city. If you guys are down there, take a look. It's pretty cool. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Sam. Shane, I do not have a report for AJ.
No report from Maricopa County DOT at this time. Thank you.
Ellie?
Nothing new to report from Tempe.
For Valley Metro, we do have the fence project that is underway, 7th Avenue Camelback North Side, Central and Thomas East Side, 19th Camelback South Side. It's a fence that basically prohibits ped crossings because you have a lot of bad behavior over there. We also are exploring an AI pilot, software pilot for our buses. So a driver alert, driver assist, like you see in a lot of the new vehicles today. So we're exploring that as well. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you. All right, that concludes in the room. So I'll ask Mohammed if you could do on call for the rest of the committee members.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Carrie Wilcoxon from Arizona Department of Transportation.
Hi, everyone. We are working now to get the get the 2022 crash data released. We're about a month behind normal. We're looking at potentially getting it released by the end of June, first part of July. And we are still working on the possibility of making that release sort of a mini summit based around the new crash data. So I'll give you more details as that materializes. There's still some resistance within ADOT. So we haven't gotten agreement yet, but that is the plan right now. Otherwise, we are moving forward with our call for proposals for the updated strategic highway safety plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Raj Toram from City of Avondale.
We are working on Dysart corridor right now to implement some of the countermeasures that was recommended in 2018 RSS studies. We did complete a couple of intersections, so we are working on more to make sure that there aren't any left turn accidents at these intersections. That's one update I have for the community.
Thank you. John Willett from City of Buckeye.
Yes, good morning. We have 2 RSAs, Safe Routes to Schools underway in the Verrado area, working with the MAG consultant. And then I think we've also started a LASS project for an intersection that I think I mentioned earlier, just out of the blue, has a lot of crashes on it. We're trying to find out why. So other than that, the only good news I have is the traffic restrictions on I-10 are done. So if you're going west to California this weekend, you should not have any delays. We are so happy for that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Raymond Huang from City of Chandler.
Nothing to report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Pinkerton from Town of Gilbert.
Yeah, as many of you will have some TSOPs that we're doing, retiming some signals. We noticed something that we've been kind of beginning to study now as far as trail crossings and whether they should be coordinated or not. MUTCD recommends them to be coordinated, but doesn't require it. But looking at more holistically for all users is kind of a safety question of should it be coordinated or should it not be? Or is there kind of a hybrid? So we're just beginning the stages of kind of looking at how best to do, whether do a study or how to do that. So if anyone in the group has done a study of that sort, I'd love to hear about it. But that's kind of a safety thing we're looking at, kind of how do we holistically provide safety. We recently switched one over with the last TSMO to coordinated, and I've been observing it and I've watched a lot more people run it without pushing the button, or push the button, wait a little bit, and then run. So from that safety perspective, we're looking at, okay, how do we, one, evaluate it, and two, what direction should we should go? That's what I have. Additionally, on a side note, we do have an assistant town engineer position open. If anyone has any questions or know anybody that's looking, we'd love to fill that position.
Thank you. Tony Abbo from City of Glendale.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of quick updates. We got some comments back on the FHWA on our SS4A agreement. We're working on getting those comments addressed in the agreement. We'll send those back out to the FHWA for their final action and approval of the agreement. And once we get the okay, we will take it to council. Odds are we won't make June, July. There are no city council meetings, so it's the likelihood that we will be taking it will be in the month of August of this year. And the only other thing that once we're done with that agreement, and concurrently we're working on the RFP for the SS4A grant that we got. So hopefully we should have that by the time we have the agreement signed and ready to hit the street. The only other comment that we have from Glendale is we also have been working on a TSOP project on Union Hills with our partners in Phoenix, Peoria, and ADOT. That looks like the plan is in place, and staff is monitoring it as we're speaking. So hopefully it should help, move traffic through the corridor and also in an efficient and safe manner. So those are the only two updates that I have.
Thank you. Hugh Biak from City of Goodyear.
Nothing for Goodyear. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith Drunaski from City of Litchfield Park.
Nothing for the city of Litchfield Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie Osborne from City of Maricopa.
We have 3 traffic signals underway right now. 2 are in design and 1 is under construction. The one in construction is at the Smith Inc. Chase Road intersection. So that's mainly what we have going on right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Stefan Bach from City of Mesa.
Mr. Chairman, members of the MAG Safety Committee, I would like to take this opportunity to mention several ongoing safety-related CIP projects here in Mesa. The intersection widening project for Sassaman Road and Baseline is moving forward with an expected construction start date of June 5th and will finish in October 2023. Then we have Sassaman Road between Ray and Warner, which is on track to start construction in November 2023, and adjacent Ray Road between Ellsworth Road and Sassaman Road will start construction in October 2023 and will be widened from 2 to 3 lanes each way. We expect cooperation with ADOT, which is necessary since the SR24 is as an overpass on Ray Road. Also in October 2023, we will see Ellsworth Road to be widened to 3 lanes each way going north and southbound. And Southern Avenue between Harris and Gilbert will start construction in 1 week. And this is a major overlay project. I would also like to mention that Mesa is aiming for a 15% reduction in traffic fatalities and serious injury crashes. Failure to yield and speeding is leading the list of violations. Our cooperation with selected agencies, police and fire, is showing progress. Heat maps were created, which are showing fatalities and serious injury crashes. And this is important to appropriately distribute officers. Mesa Transportation is working on campaigns and initiatives to bring down fatalities and serious injury crashes, especially motorcycle crashes, which have been on the rise lately. And we are trying to implement surveys for teens and programs for younger kids to speak up and point out bad driving behavior. We also have initiatives for older residents, and we're planning for safety campaigns for motorcyclists to hopefully make an impact. Thank you for this opportunity to bring up these items. Thank you.
Thank you. Brandon Forey from City of Peoria.
Wanted to announce that we are going to be converting an intersection in North Peoria from a 2-way stop to an all-way stop. It's a minor arterial that's 4 lanes with a 2-way left turn lane intersecting a collector street. We're going to be downgrading the arterial to a collector, and we're going to be dropping 2 lanes to 1 on the approach to the all-way stop. It's something we're going to be doing over the summer, and doing everything we can to reinforce with police enforcement and education and the school. The nearby school will be posting a crossing guard at the location for a new school crossing. This is a departure from the school district's practice of busing kids across arterial streets, because it's a case where it's an arterial street that really wasn't an arterial street. So we're trying to go back and right size the street. This is the first step. We're going to continue later with trying to see if we can right size the entire corridor as opposed to just the intersection. So this is step 1. We're really interested to see how it's received by the community. In other news, we are going to be establishing a reduced school speed zone on Deer Valley in the vicinity of Liberty High School between 95th Avenue and 98th Avenue. And that's something that we're going to be getting in place during the summer. So we'll be in effect for the new school year. We're going to be trying, this is somewhat of a new concept for Peoria, even though it's been tried in many other places. We're going to use a series of radar feedback signs and variable message speed limit signs to dictate when the speed limit changes, as opposed to the traditional when flashing with a flashing beacon for the reduced speed limit. So instead of static signs, it will be variable message and regulatory speed limit signs. And that's the reports from Peoria.
Thank you. Reed Henry as proxy for Carl Langford from City of Phoenix.
The City of Phoenix has nothing new to report.
Thank you. Tara Harmon from Pinal County.
Hi, thank you. Pinal County has nothing new to report today.
Thank you. Marshall Regal as proxy for Jan Martin from Town of Queen Creek.
Yeah, no report.
Thank you. Are there any members of the Transportation Safety Committee that I have missed? Mr. Chair, that concludes the report from the committee members. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for those reports. We'll move on to the next item, which is item 9, requests for future agenda items. So this is the time, opportunity for committee members to verbally bring up any topics or issues of interest that you would like to have considered at a future meeting. And if you don't bring anything up verbally now, just remember, if you think of things after the meeting, you could feel free to email myself or Margaret of those items for consideration for future meetings. So is there any items or anything from committee members at this time? All right, not hearing any, so we'll go to item 10, which is announcement of our next meeting date and place. Next meeting is slated for the Transportation Safety Committee at 10 a.m. Tuesday, looks like July 25th, 2023. So July 25th, 2023, same time, same location. Attendance in person, of course, is encouraged on MEG's second floor Ironwood Room. Virtual options will still remain available. And I'll go ahead, and that's the last item. So we'll go ahead and adjourn, and it looks like it's 11:22 Phoenix local time. Thank you, everybody, and everybody be safe. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.